fast, super quiet, supercomputer in an 8-inch cube.
But there's one more thing. It is a new desktop machine. What is it? We are combining the power of the PowerMac G4 with the desktop elegance, the silence, and the miniaturization that we learned from doing the iMacs to make a whole new class of machine into something this size. Okay? From this to this. And what we've miniaturized it into is an 8-inch cube. And all this power has cooled without a fan. And so it runs in virtual silence. And we call this new product the PowerMac G4 Cube, or more affectionately, the G4 Cube. And I would like to show it to you now. Let's bring it out. This is a stunning product, quite possibly the most beautiful product we've ever designed. The computer is in an 8-inch cube, and it's suspended in a stunning crystal clear enclosure. There's also a slot-load DVD drive, but where is it, you ask? Not cool? So everything is in there, very conveniently located to sit right next to you on your desk. But they also spend an enormous amount of time figuring out how to get it out quickly. Because our pro customers like to get at every component in the system within a matter of a few seconds. You push down on this handle and it pops up, and you literally lift all of the technology out. You have access to every single component. And when you're done, you just put it back in, pop down the handle to lock it in. A size comparison with the PowerMac shows how small it really is. And for a system like this that's configured with a 450 megahertz G4, 64 meg of memory, 20 gigabytes of storage, slot-load DVD drive, FireWire and iMovie, for this whole system, $17.99. We have a second model, 128 megabytes of memory, 30 gigs of hard storage, DVD-ROM, FireWire, iMovie, maybe the ultimate iMovie machine. And it's available for $22.99.
Hello YouTube, this is another video from Super Apple Forever. So I finally set up the G4 Cube, and I'm finally going to do a complete tour of it. So this is probably one of my most requested videos that I've had, is the tour of the Cube. So I finally am going to do that. I know it's taken me a long time, but I just wanted to wait till I moved into my new house, so the surroundings would look a little nicer, and everything would, just be better, I guess. But I am going to take you around the complete tour of the Cube, and in that I'll be showing you the hardware, the software, and the peripherals of the Cube. It is a very nice computer, and I'm really lucky to have one. But first of all, I'll talk a little bit about the history. So the G4 Cube was released in July of 2000, and I believe that was in Macworld 2000. And the most expensive configuration was $22.99, so pretty expensive. If you guys watched the beginning video that I put into this video where Steve Jobs was talking about it, said that price, everyone started clapping, and that was in 2000, so I don't see how somebody would clap about that costing that much money in 2000. So the low end was actually $1,600, so that's not as bad, but still that's quite a bit of money even now, even for today's standards. So actually, I'm looking at Apple histories just so I get this correct. It was actually introduced in August of 2000 and terminated or discontinued in July of 2001. So it really wasn't around that long. The reason, or one of the biggest reasons for it being discontinued, was the lack of cells. As you just heard, it was very expensive, so a lot of people obviously didn't want to spend that much on a computer, and you could just buy a PowerMac G4, the regular model, the tower, for about the same price, and you had almost twice the power. So, but I still, probably the Cube is one of my top 3 favorites. I don't have a favorite Mac, but it would be on my top 3. But I couldn't choose a favorite Mac. I just like them all. But it is a very nice computer, as I've said. This one is actually not the fastest one. It's the base model. It's a 450 megahertz PowerPC G4, obviously. Again, the fastest was a 500 megahertz, which really isn't that bad. The VRAM, well, actually, the graphics card it had was an ATI Rage 128 Pro with 16 megs of VRAM, which, again, in today's standards, really wasn't that much, or isn't nothing at all. It's nothing in today's standards, but it has a 20 gig hard drive, which I am planning on upgrading probably to a 250 gig hard drive, which is the max that these can support. So that would be good for iTunes and stuff. And it also has, like I said, it maxed out 1.5 gigs of RAM, which is still pretty good for this Mac. So what I'll do now is I'll show you the box of the Cube. So let me just get over here. There's the box of the Cube, and I have some stuff in it, but it's a pretty good box for considering how old it is. But this is what came in the box: the Cube itself, the Pro mouse, keyboard, and speakers, which I have to say these speakers really sound amazing. And if you want to read this, I guess you can. You just have to pause the video, but these are the original specs of the computer. I guess you can pause the video if you'd like to look at those. And there's the PowerPC logo and everything. And then there's a, I can't really see that in the light, but here's another really nice looking picture of it. So sorry about the look of that. But so what we'll do now is I'll unplug everything, and I'll show you around the actual internal components in the computer. So I put it on my bed just to prevent any scratches that could happen. But if you can see here, you can see, again, there's the original specs of it. Designed by Apple in California, 450 megahertz, 1 meg of cache, 64 meg of RAM. And this was actually originally designed to run OS 9, so those are pretty standard configurations for OS 9. OS 10 obviously does take a lot more power. And I'll just go over the ports really quick. We've got a 10100 based Ethernet, I believe. It's not 100, or it's not 100. 1000 based. We've got 2 FireWire 400s, and I actually used to use the computer to sync my first gen iPod, and it did a wonderful job of that. I did use this as my main desktop for about 8 months before I had my iMac early 2008. But 2 USB 2.0 ports, I believe. It could be 1.0, but I don't think so. And we've got our 56K modem, of course, and this is the proprietary power jack. And then here's the graphics card. I don't actually, I'm not using the, what's it called, I forgot what it's called, but I'm not using the metal part for the PCI slot because it wasn't compatible with this graphics card, since this is not the original card. And then we've got reset buttons here. So an awesome feature about the Cube, and if you watch that video where Steve Jobs introduced it, all he did was lift up this, and then that was the amazing part. So inside there's nothing much. We've just got the heatsink, or part of the heatsink, and just some air holes there, the power button kind of, and the slot for the disk drive, which is awesome. I'll just go over each section. So I think this is the water damage indicator. I'm not really sure on what that is. And then here, I actually don't remember what card I put in here. You've got to make sure when you're upgrading this not to, when you're upgrading the card, you have to wait about 30 minutes, because I remember when I was upgrading the card on this, I just turned it off and I opened it and I assumed it wasn't hot, and I touched the heatsink on the graphics card, the old graphics card, and it almost burned me. It was very hot. So we've got the RAM in here. Each one of these is 512, obviously. 2 for 1 gig and then another one for half of a gig. And I'll show you one of the RAM cards really quick, if I can just get it out of there. So here we are. So there's the RAM cards. Each one of them is 512. It's actually really simple to install RAM on here. As you can imagine, you just have to put it in here and then press down. I always enjoy installing RAM on Macs. So, yeah, that's the RAM. It's obviously older RAM, so not going to be nearly as fast as anything newer. But the PCI card is kind of weird. The actual PCI slot is right here, but then we've got like another board that converts it from like a top going up to going this way, so you can put in the card this way. And other than that, that's all that's on this side. And then on this side, we've got the airport card, and I actually bought this airport card for it. When I bought it, it originally didn't have an airport card. But even with the old, I believe it's G wireless, 2.5.11 or B.11, I don't really remember, but I think it's G. The other one's B. I might be wrong on that, but it's got even the old type of airport. It's still pretty fast. It doesn't really slow me down when I'm browsing on here. I do a lot of browsing on this cube still. I've tried to upgrade the hard drive once, but I think I put in the wrong kind of hard drive. But right here, the heatsink comes out, and then the hard drive, I believe, yeah, the hard drive is right here. So the heatsink comes out, and then you can pull out the hard drive and put another one in there. It really wasn't designed for that though, but you can upgrade it. But as you can imagine, everything is really enclosed. And then here we've got our battery for time and stuff. I think that battery's still active. But these are actually custom batteries, so you have to buy these off of eBay, and they're getting expensive because they're not made anymore. So, again, there's a 20 gig hard drive. This computer would be absolutely silent if it wasn't for this hard drive. It's very loud, and that's usually what spoils these Macs, like the iMac G3. The hard drive is very loud in it. So, that's basically it. And then here you can see the airport antenna running there for the airport card. You can see that in there too. So, yeah, it's a very nice machine, or it's actually a lot of fun to work on when you upgrade it and stuff. And then one thing I forgot to mention is the Kensington lock, so nobody can open it. So, very nice computer. It's actually a little heavy, but not heavy enough that you can't do it with one hand or anything. So when you're putting this back in, and actually I'll show you something really quick. I'll show you around the back. And then here we've got PowerMac G4 Cube. I'm not sure how good you can see that in the sunlight. We've got all our trademark stuff here, and then the logos. So that's back, and that's where the metal wraps around. Not actually sure what these are for. And then we've got the Apple logo. It is common to have cracks, stress cracks along here and here, and then there is another stress crack right here. So it is common. The thing's not going to fall apart though, but it does happen with these cubes. So to put it back in, you just have to line the ports with this little back casing here, and all you have to do is just put it in here and slide in and just turn that, and then it locks in place, which is an awesome feature. And then you can just connect it back. So I'm going to connect it back, and then we'll start it up, and we'll look at how it runs Mac OS 10. Okay, so the cube's back in place, and what we're going to do now is power it up, and I'm going to leave it recording just for comparison so you can see how fast it actually boots. And once we get it booting up, it's going to boot into Tiger. I don't know if I said this before, but I really would like to have Leopard on it. I think you could run it pretty well, but obviously the disk drive in this is too old to read dual layers, and every other way I've attempted to install it, it fails. So I think that when I get a new hard drive for this, I'll have to install it on the hard drive using another program or something, and then it should work okay. The way you can install Leopard on these older G4s is if you use Leopard Assist, and I actually have a video on that. So, but unfortunately my tripod doesn't work. One of the legs is broken off of it, and that happened in the process of me moving, so I'll have to just hold it with my hand, and hopefully it won't be too bad. And I'm going to turn off the light so we'll be able to see the screen nicer. Okay, so here we go. I do have the original screen that came with this computer. Well, actually no original screen came with it, but when you bought it, it was an option, and a pretty standard screen came with it. It was pretty standard at the time for Apple computers. It was I think it was a 15 or 16 inch studio display. So I'll just try to keep the camera focused on the screen now, since we're looking at that part. So as you can see, we're booting into Tiger. So it did boot up pretty fast, and that's mostly because of the RAM that it has in it. So what we'll do really quick is go to Apple and About This Mac. So as you can see here, 10.4.11 Tiger. The reason it says 933 megahertz G4 is because I was using Leopard Assist, but it really is the 450 megahertz, of course, and 1.5 gigs of RAM. So as you can see here, PowerMac G4 Cube. And I'll just try to make this bigger. Okay. So ATA, which is the hard drive, it's got a 20 gig drive. And actually I'll have to use my left hand for the mouse since I can hold the camera better with my right. Audio, no audio built in. Obviously it just has the 2 Pro speakers, which do sound very great, and I'll demonstrate that. No Bluetooth, of course. Disc burning. So you could either get a CD-R drive, which would record CDs or rewrite CDs, or you could get a CD-DVD drive combo. So that's what was put on this computer, and I would have chose that myself too. So actually, I did upgrade the graphics card to a different graphics card, so it's not the Rage 128 Pro. I thought it was, but I really didn't remember since I did it like 2 years ago. But it is an Ateon Radeon 7500, which now that I saw the name, I do remember it a lot better. It's 32 megs of VRAM, which is twice as much as 16. So really, when I do remember booting it, it really did boost the performance on it. But when I bought this computer, it had Panther on it, and I did run Panther on it for about 3 months when I first had it, and it was running a lot smoother than when I put Tiger on it. But again, with Tiger you get all that support. So memory, we can see each one of them is 512 PCI. So obviously there's no PCI cards in there, there's just one for the graphics card. I used to have a printer connected, but not anymore. And then serial CT and USB. So airport card, it does have an airport card on it, which I needed since, yeah. But another reason for it being so fast is the modem is about 10 feet away from it. So that's System Profiler. Okay, so I do have my Me account synchronized with this computer. There is a way to do it with Tiger. It just thinks that it's a .Mac account. So I can just do a quick sync now, and it'll sync all my mail and contacts to this computer. I do use it for email sometimes. I can just have it open or turned on when I don't want my PowerMac G5 on. I can just have this on and have mail open, and every time I get an email, it'll just tell me. I can just use this for email. A lot of times I'll use it for music. I'll run Pandora on it or iTunes. I have transmission, and sorry about all that background noise, I don't know what's going on. Transmission is for torrents, obviously. I do use this every once in a while for torrents, just so it doesn't take bandwidth up on my other computers. And then I just move it to my computer with file sharing in iMovie HD, and I believe this is iMovie 06. So I added that on there as well. I would edit this video on it just for fun, but again, but this is 1080p video, so it's 30 frames per second 1080p, so it wouldn't do good on here. And I'll show you iTunes. I do have a few songs on here, but I'm in the process of transferring my library onto here too. I did actually reinstall Tiger a few months ago just for a clean start, so it ran a little nicer. So we'll play the Beatles.
Words are flowing out like endless rain into a paper cup. They slither wildly as they slip away across the universe. joy all drifting through my opened mind, possessing and caressing me.
So the visualizer looks really nice. That's mostly because of the graphics card upgrade. Before that, when I tried to play iTunes, which was like iTunes 6 because it was on Panther, the visualizer was incredibly slow. So it does help to have that graphics card upgrade. I only paid about $35, or if I can remember, I think I only paid about $32 for the graphics card. So it was really worth it getting that big speed increase. Without it, I think Tiger would run really slow on this computer. So this is iTunes 9, so it is still pretty well used. Of course, we do have iTunes 10 now. It does run incredibly good on here. So I do use Skype sometimes just for IM, and occasionally I'll hook up an iSight on here just to test it out. I do have an iSight. So we'll just look at what kind of applications I have on here, and pretty much it's just the basic stuff. There's nothing really that drastically put on here. I did put Internet Explorer on here just for fun, the old Mac OS X version. I put it on all of my Macs just for fun and to play around with sometimes. But you can see we've got the basic Tiger layout. I do have App Cleaner. I put it on all of my machines as well. And then iDisk for my Me account and network. And then if I press network, it will show all the computers in my house. I do a lot of file sharing with this, and it does work still with Tiger. I even do file sharing between Tiger and Lion, and it works perfectly. So the next thing I'll show you is Safari. Safari 4 is still pretty good on here. Once Safari 4 stops working, I'll start using Safari, or I'll start using Camino or Firefox or whatever is out there that will work. So we'll just play a quick iPad ad and see how that runs on here. I don't know if it'll run with here with an older version of QuickTime, but it should. Hopefully I'm holding the camera pretty steady. I'm trying the best I can. It's kind of difficult, as you can imagine. We'll just have to wait for the page to load.
We'll never stop sharing our memories or getting lost in a good book. We'll always enter and cheer for our favorite team. We'll still go to meetings,
It's unfortunately buffering because it's 720p.
How do we do all this? We'll never be the same.
Or 640p. It's HD video, so unfortunately it's kind of gonna buffer. But surprisingly enough, in theory, that iPad is faster than this computer. That's I guess some surprising statistics or whatever. Now we'll go to YouTube, and this is where you can see the resemblance of how old this computer really is. One of the reasons I don't like Flash Player, and most Mac users don't like Flash Player, or vintage Mac users like myself, is that it really lowers the value of these older computers when it doesn't have to. Flash is really hard on even modern computers. If you have like 2 or 3 YouTube videos open on a tab playing at once, it starts to be very resource consuming. I guess that's just something we'll have to live with for a while. We'll type in G4 Cube, so you can see the internet does work pretty fast. I'll just type in G4 Cube. You can play 240p video in full screen as long as you don't go any higher than 240p, then it's okay. And we'll watch Matt's Macintosh review of the G4 Cube. His videos are pretty awesome.
Previously on Matt's Macintosh, our brave hero.
Okay, so it's playing in 340p, and as you can see, that video was struggling to play on here. And now it's going to try to load in 720p, and we can just put it back down to 240p.
Previously on Matt's Macintosh, our brave hero began an
as you can see there, we've got the spinning gear, so I really don't like Flash on these older computers, obviously. It is low quality, but it works.
products. Our continuation finds him in the year 2000.
So here I am in the year 2000. Now, I just knew growing up the year 2000 was going to rock. It seemed so far in the future then. I just knew we'd have flying cars and ray guns and live in space colonies. It was going to be great. What was the year 2000 really like? Well, they had the dot-com bubble bust, Y2K, Britney Spears had the #1 album. But Apple released a computer that year that was futuristic. In fact, you could say it was so futuristic, it was like the future cubed.
The G4 Cube is probably most famous for its design. It's shaped like, guess what? A cube. Now, for some reason, Steve Jobs seemed to have really favored this design. If you look, even when he worked at Next Computers, he also made a cube-shaped PC, which actually went on to become the world's first web server. The machine itself...
So yeah, his review is like 100 times better than mine. I want to give you a full look of it. So yeah, you can see it does. The Flash does play great on here as long as it is in 240p. It does play.
It was encased in a clear acrylic, which almost gives the appearance that it's floating. It's only broken up by...
But other than that, I mean, it's still an awesome computer. Obviously, has no flash in it whatsoever, so it'll load it just like a regular website. The reason it's a little sluggish is because of the cache of the YouTube video. So, probably the last thing I'll show you would be the text-to-speech thing. So in Google or Wikipedia, I'll just open up the G4 Cube Wikipedia page, and then I'll show you the text-to-speech. I have a vintage voice. I have a vintage voice chosen for the Mac, or for the G4 Cube. I think it just sounds a little more cool. But, of course, there are better sounding voices that you can choose. I think Bruce is a good one for Tiger. Of course, Alex would be the best one if you're on the Lion. If you figured out how to get Lion, or I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm saying Lion. If you figured out how to get Leopard on a cube, then Alex would be your best bet. All right, so I'll just highlight this, and then hopefully. Oh yes, I don't know if I mentioned this in the beginning of the video, but I've retaken it a few times, so I don't really remember. But the cube was sold, or is in the New York Museum of Art. So if you're in New York, that'd be something you might want to check out. If you're an Apple person, I'm kind of having trouble highlighting this. So there we go.
The PowerMac G4 Cube was a small form-factor Macintosh personal computer from Apple Incorporated. It was sold from 2000 to 2001. It's cube-shaped and
So yeah, I know that voice sounds bad, but it's a really vintage synthesizer voice from like the Macintosh days. So it's been used since like the original Macintosh. If you've seen Steve Jobs introduce the Mac in '84. So yeah. If you have any other questions about the Cube, please feel free to ask me. It is a wonderful computer. I really wanted to get this video out, and I finally have it out. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Sorry about the tripod not working, but I tried to cover the most I could without spending the most time. So hopefully I did do that. And please don't forget to like and subscribe.
In first grade, when I was painting with poster paints, I painted a boat and I made the smoke go the right direction, and my first grade teacher told my mom, you should nurture his artistic ability. I've been a visual person ever since. I was an art director, I'm a designer, and I just love how the Cube looks. I mean, it's just the coolest looking computer on the planet.
The first reaction I had to the size of the G4 Cube was really one of amazement, because if you had asked me in advance how small can a supercomputer be, I never would have come close to what I saw.
3.5 gigaflops. Now that is 3.5 billion operations per second. It is staggering by any measure, and 10 years ago it was unheard of in anything smaller than a washing machine.
The heart of the G4 Cube is incredibly complex. I mean, it's a supercomputer. But we were looking for a final design that was very simple a design that left you with a sense of, well, of course, that's the most natural, the most elegant solution possible.
All the kind of functional characteristics are taken care of, but then there's another level of aesthetic that just lifts it and gives it spirit.
Most computer companies would have said, this is an impossible task. They would have walked away from it. I mean, to take a computer 4 times its size and pack it down into an 8-inch cube, it seems impossible, but we did it.
Being this big and being able to sustain 1, 2, 3, or 4 gigaflops, we are looking at 2,000 times the volume efficiency of, say, a Cray supercomputer of the 1980s.
The G4 Cube starts out with 64 megabytes of memory, expandable up to 1.5 gigabytes of RAM. It starts with a 20 gigabyte hard drive, configurable up to 40 gigabytes. It's got all the I/O you could ever want. Ethernet, USB, FireWire, everything you need is in the Cube.
The Adobe user is going to love it. It has everything they require. It has the power of a G4, but it has the elegance and the design element that they care about.
The G4 Cube is designed to go onto your desk, so we saw that it was crucial that we could remove both visual and audible clutter. So the team figured out a way to actually remove the fan. The product's air-cooled so that it's virtually silent.
Instead of sitting down at a computer that's humming and you kind of feel technology in the room, you're sitting down in the silence where you can sit and have an idea.
The DVD has a nice element of surprise in the way that it rises from the top of the cube, just like magic.
You flip it over, there's this little latch that you hit and it pops up and you can pull the entire core out. It almost looks like this nuclear reactor core, you know, something that you'd see in Mission Impossible.
There's easy access to all the RAM, to the airport cards, to the graphics cards. You don't have to then say, gee, I'm going to upgrade the memory. What expert am I going to have to find? It's something that really an 8-year-old can do in about 15 seconds.
Along with this amazing little cube, you have a new keyboard, a professional new mouse. It's optical, so there's nothing to clog your jam.
We reduced the speakers to an elemental form, the sphere. They're elegant, very simple, and they sound outrageous.
I love the new flat panel display. I just think both the big one and the smaller one are just the most beautiful things. Other people are totally in love with the way the new CRT looks. That see-through back end is just so Apple.
The new G4 Cube is the ultimate desktop movie-making machine. It comes with iMovie 2 software. Or if you're a professional, you can step right up to Final Cut Pro.
You get an idea, you walk out, you film it, you bring it back, you download it through FireWire, you can play with it in Final Cut Pro, you know, add type, whatever, and boom, it's done.
Whether you do publishing, web design, video editing, this machine was made for you.
If I had only seen the PowerMac G4 Cube, I would have been very impressed. I would have said, this is going to be a very important product for Apple and for users. But it didn't stop there, and from one experience to the next, it just kept getting better and better. And I left kind of scratching my head thinking, is there anything that's missing from this product offering? And I'm still thinking, because I don't think there is.
I think the thing that I'm most thrilled with is that the products are, they are very different, but that together they do relate as one very harmonious family.
Steve loves doing ta-da and pulling the sheet off of stuff, and it was just another one of those ta-das where you go, holy shit, we've done it again.